even in that space, the sort of interventions that this government has come up with and the sound or the solid foundation that the economy was hinged on is the reason why we're able to stabilize the economy and do the things that this government has been able to do by providing some relief when it comes to utilities, electricity, water, which you are aware of over the period. Now, as we speak, water is being given out for free. We have issues, people on the lifeline segment in the electricity sector are not paying anything. They're doing it for free over a period. And this is supporting households, especially when we live in a country where we all appreciate that a large majority of these people are actually in the informal sector. Talking about jobs. Now, under the NDC, you had a situation where we had the infamous Unemployed Graduates Association in this country, where young graduates, people have gone to school, have had to go through all these exigencies to be able to graduate from our various tertiary institutions in this country and have been home year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5 as a result of bad and inept management of an economy, so that they were at home because under GM, under their watch, they ran the economy aground to the point that we had to go to the IMF. At the time we were going to the IMF, you know what they were telling us? They were telling us that we were going to the IMF to seek policy credibility. It turned out that we went to the IMF for a full-blown bailout. That is the NDC's track record for you. Now, even when it comes to the free SH, something that I forget, they keep talking about infrastructure, we build schools, we build schools. Today, and you can get some of your guys on the field to check, the 900 various infrastructure projects, some completed, majority of them completed in almost every single cycle institution in this country to cater for the large numbers of young people who had to benefit from the free SHS. It's there, it's clear. He sits in Parliament. And if he wants to know, he will find out. They're talking about NAPCO. 100,000, close to 100,000 young graduates getting an opportunity to at least enter into a job market, gain some experience, and get a certain sense of pride that at least I leave my home, I've gone to school for all these years, I leave my home and I'm able to go to work and be able to contribute my quota to the development of my nation. And giving them some decent, at least some decent salaries and wages to be able to go by. That is the NPP administration for you. Now, he said he didn't want to discuss 1D, 1F. Even the numbers, even the numbers, the number of districts that have had an opportunity to have factories. If every single government since independence have done so, I'm sure we'll be the bastion of industrialization in Africa. Let me make my point.
I'll let you make your point.
As we speak.
When you mentioned, you can't.
No, but you didn't interrupt him while he was speaking.
You did, Eric.
Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead.
The time is mine to give.
Okay.
So just hold on for me. On the 1D, 1F.
Yeah.
I saw an interview 2 days ago that the coordinator, Madam Ahini Kunedu, granted the Daily Graphic. And the Daily Graphic asked a very simple question. She says, right now, every district, we have 218 of them, has one of these factories, either completed or in the process. Daily Graphics asked a simple question: how many of these are functional? She said she did not know at the time. She was sitting in her office.
No. I mean, you see, well, I don't speak for Madam Ohinikune.
Yes.
But I can give you a typical example.
Give me a typical example.
Happened just about 2 weeks ago.
Give me.
My village.
Yes.
Abompe.
Yes.
In the Fantiakwa South District.
Yeah.
For the last 300 years, the people of Abompe have been making what we call bauxite beads, using manual, mundane ways of doing it. Go to Abompe today. There's a fully functional beads making factory today that was actually set up by government. It's there. Now, when you have that conversation for a people that have been doing this thing for the last 300 years, right? For a government to have the presence of mind to say that we can activate technology, and that machinery that is there was commissioned through gratis that used a local Ghanaian engineer, right, to fabricate your station went to cover it. I was there because that's my hometown, right? So that instead of using the mundane, rudimentary, and manual processes, now it's a machine, the first of its kind anywhere in the world. I'm telling you, which can be replicated across, and that is a government that is interested in adding value. It doesn't matter if it's food, agriculture, bauxite, and all of those things, adding value to the raw materials that can be found in this country. Dr. Baumia was talking about issues to do with adding value to iron ore deposits, our bauxite deposits, and all of those things. That is a clear indication. And that's why I'm saying that the NDC is not learning any lessons. It is not to say, I mean, even this whole infrastructure debate, sometimes I get a bit confounded with this whole infrastructure conversation.
Right, 5 minutes.
Right? Even this infrastructure conversation, if you want to juxtapose a President Akufo-Addo administration, the last 3.5 years, and that of the NDC in the 8 years, I can tell you, sitting here categorically, that even that one, they will not meet it, because by their own analogies, every single thing that was started under the watch of President Mills is the project that was being given to President Mahama, former President Mahama, as his achievement. So if that is the case, all the issues to do with the Eurojet-funded hospitals that they are claiming that they've done happen under the watch of President Kufuor. Or if you want to extend that, even this airport that they were talking about, and they keep waxing lyrical about, when did they start? It started in 2016. So in effect, it actually, in terms of its implementation and execution, right, it's under the watch of President Akufo-Addo that airport was finished. The Terminal 3. Yes. Ask him, because he sits in Parliament. When did the project start? Ask him. So these mixed analogies, when he sees you, when he sees you, listen, when he sees you, you take credit for certain things that you probably even thought about. I mean, they sit here and sometimes even kid themselves that they actually implemented free SHS. And they have no shame. They tell you, we implemented free SHS.
They implemented progressive free.
Listen. And that is the NDC for you. And I'm saying that in all of these things that they are talking about, we are going to do free primary health care and all that. Ask them, what happened to the one-time premium that they promised? What happened to the one-time premium that
they admitted it could not be done.
Exactly. So, I mean, all of these conversation points to a party that is bereft of ideas and new thinking. Listen, between the health sector and education sector, I can tell you for a fact, and you can check, close to 500,000 Ghanaians have been employed in that sector since 2017. You can go and verify.
In the health sector?
In the health sector and education sector alone.
Okay.
Right? And that is what you talk about when you're having conversation with Ghanaians. So the NPP is not going to be sitting there, of course, being complacent about winning an election. But we know that the work that has been done is going to speak for us. We're talking about the digitalization agenda, whereby we have conversation. And I listen to you guys a lot, where there's a certain need, almost immediate need, for us to activate technology, digitize our economy, so that we can formalize the economy to make use, to benefit from all the things that technology brings to the fore. And think about it. In the last 25 years or so, right, which government has pushed that particular agenda forward? We're talking about a paperless board, we're talking about a national identification card. And on their watch, how many cards did they distribute? Right? And so we are working systematically to a point where all of these things will come together. And Ghanaians alike, ordinary Ghanaians, people from civil society and other eminent people are saying that 4 more for Nana. And it's very simple. I haven't spoken about planting for food and jobs.
We'll get there.
Today.
We'll get there.
Today, when we have conversation, no, 5 minutes is already up.
Yes,
listen. Let me just.
Your 5 minutes is up.
Let me just.
I'll give you one second.
Let me just round up.
Okay, round it up.
You see,
round it up.
it's extremely dangerous, right, for us to allow the NDC to perpetuate a campaign of hate. When he was talking, he started talking about issues to do with impartiality that has been affected in the judiciary, and Parliament is under the, if you like, the ambit of the executive, and people are intimidated in this society, casting tribal, ethnic innuendos.
He has not cast any tribal or ethnic sense.
It is important.
I like to keep things straight.
Listen.
He
It
has
is
not said so.
important. No, listen.
Eric, he has not said anything ethnocentric or
Listen,
tribal.
I didn't say that. I said innuendos. I used the word innuendos.
He has not.
Okay. But all I'm saying is that, you see,
He has not.
it is important that we anchor this our conversation based in principle. That in 1992, we all agreed as a people that we want to be governed by the tenets of democracy, which means that I can disagree with you, you can disagree with me, and all of those things. But the moment you decide to undermine the very institutions that are supposed to be the bedrock of this particular democracy, it is extremely dangerous. And for me, I think that once you disagree, I mean, he made mention of the EC and all of this. You see, once you disagree, even based on either policy, direction, orientation, it's fine. But it's a point where you have to draw a certain line. And this whole idea, I mean, I call it intellectual arrogance or pomposity, that the mere fact that your line is not taken means that the other party is wrong. And the so-called experts. Because even in the field of, any field, right, and you've done research, right, you can have theories that other theories are actually trying to...
they don't agree. They don't have to,
and these are people
they're always competing theories.
Competing theories. You know, so this intellectual arrogance that, well, I am a think tank, I'm a civil society, or I'm an individual, and that my position on this subject is sacrosanct, for me, is disingenuous. Let's agree that, yes, even an institution like the Electoral Commission, because we all agree that we are going to be governed by that tenet, the framers, right, the framers of the Constitution decided that their mandate is meant to be independent.
Don't worry.
So that, right, so that in a case that there's a stalemate, it doesn't look like they are pandering to one side or the other. That is the whole basis of democracy.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I will be back for a second round of this conversation. We will also hear from Franklin Kujo, President of Imani Africa, and Nano Furiwusu, National Chair of the PPP. But I also have a lot of messages this morning, so today I'll be going through the messages quite early. Leviticus Powers from Kaswa says the EC has successfully completed the compilation of the voters register, and doomsayers and prophets must bow their heads in shame. Ghanaians are ready to renew the mandate of the president. This is from Leviticus. From Yesuvi, please let Honorable Suini know that almost all the projects commissioned by the former president were started during the time of Mills and Kufuor. In 2 years, Nanado will commission more than that. Also coming in, Dr. Flamboyant from Bawa. I told you to keep the language civil, please. Let us respect each other here. Good morning. I think our current vice president is only known for one thing: attacking the former president. He should look to the good people of Ghana and expect to do better in the job that he has. He has greatly disappointed us. Enough of his style, because all that he... okay. Also, Kwame from Kaswa says, I want the Honorable NDC MP to confirm if it is true that former President Jamama promised all apprentices to be given allowance when voted into power. Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll hear from Franklin Kujo and Nano Furiwusu of the PPP.
Imagine if you can get all the understanding on some of the difficult subjects you struggle with in school. As a student, do you feel dissatisfied with how hard it is to figure out a subject you're learning? Or as a parent or guardian, do you worry that your child is struggling to understand some of the subjects in school? Well, now you don't need to sign up for extra lessons or tutors. Simply tune in to Class Act, Mondays to Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. on Citi TV. Class Act is a show that seeks to enable senior high school students gain a much better understanding of what they learn in school. All you need is a TV, a chair, your notebook, and your pen. Get clarity on subjects such as maths, English, IT, and science. Class Act airs every Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on Citi TV on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. Don't forget your pens, pencils, and your notebooks and tune in to Class Act, only on Citi TV.
Precision, style, class, execution, talent. Congratulations to the top 20 contestants that made it to the main audition for Keyboard Idol. The question is, which of these 20 talents will be in the top 10 and ultimately become the Keyboard Idol? The Keyboard Idol every Saturday at 7 p.m. only on Citi TV. Tune in to Citi TV and follow the conversation using the hashtag Keyboard Idol for updates or visit citytvonline.com. This amazing talent competition is sponsored by Asanka, powered by Tech Aid, and Santol Energy. Keyboard Idol is powered by Citi TV. The quest to find a keyboard superstar starts now.
Citi TV is live. On DSTV, go to channel 363. On GoTV, access Citi TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV on your television. Citi TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. Citi TV, it's your world.
Welcome back to the big issue, discussing the campaign season, MPP, NDC, as we enter the election. And it's full-blown campaign season, one must say. Promises by the NDC's candidate, former President John Dramani Mahama, promises by the sitting President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and in fact also criticism from his Vice President to the former president on what he did with his time as president, and we are trying to unravel some of these achievements and perceived achievements and whatnot in the first half of the show. Franklin, good morning. Are you on?
I'm on. Good morning. Good to see you. I like your outfit.
Thank you.
Good to see my good friend Rick Chuman, Alasan Suini as usual, and Anofuri Usu. Great guy.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. I know it's been a busy week for you at Imani. You've been organizing big things across the country. You also invested heavily in the campaign season. You started with independent candidates, right?
Oh, we did, and it was just refreshing. I mean, if you listen to Suini and Eric Chung, you realize that there's really nothing new they are actually saying. We wanted opportunity to have divergent voices as well, varied voices, to put to bed actually to put underground, really, the whole idea that there are only two champions in this country when it comes to developing this country. There are very novel ideas that I'm sure when you watch, you must have heard. Of course, there's a wide gulf between ideas and then getting the opportunity to implement them. And so we do not tire. We do not shy away from the fact that there's an uphill tax for these candidates. But my God, those were refreshing ideas. I mean, you had Kofi Corentin suggest that he can run a government with 10 ministers, and he goes ahead to list them. And then Ofori Ampofo goes ahead to tell you that he can do 40 and even cut back on the largesse that we've actually been witnessing. You hear Kofi Gan tell you that he can employ his skills as an accountant, and a chartered one as that, who has worked with international development agencies, to bring some civility to bear on what it means to have value for money in governance, efficiency, meritocracy, and then pragmatism, really. And you had Calebo Morgan tell you that when the two parties seem to be promising everything, very soon they'll promise us free wives, free husbands, free children, free everything. And you had Osomte, by the way, was a star of the night. I mean, Osomte is quite unassuming. He starts off by telling you that he's a dropout, a GSS2 dropout, and then you think that you want to write him off. But when the first question was asked about nepotism, collusion, and corruption in government, plus the fact that you have a big size administration, he goes ahead to tell you that he draws inspiration from Article 78, which appears to be the source of all this confusion, and that the president is like Captain Planet at the commanding height of an economy and a country who can employ dozens, thousands of persons without proper. If I want to hear things different when we go to the next round of candidates, the minority parties, away from the tired, beating words of somebody is incompetent, somebody is more corrupt, somebody is this, that. Those things are not defining the 21st century modern country that they want to build, as cleverly espoused by this candidate. They did a yeoman's job.
But if you've been listening, there is a lot of there are a lot of ideas being put out there. You had the big push agenda, 1 million jobs, as put out by the former president, where he's looking to create between 300 and 4,000 jobs a year in both the private and public sector. He's looking at investing 100 to 200 million US dollars in several initiatives, and especially he's talking about the environment as well, which is interesting. We've never really had a campaign that talks about the environment, so-called, in this country.
Well, beautiful introduction to the conversation this morning. By the way, I suspect we met the NDC manifesto committee last week anyway. Interesting group of guys espousing interesting ideas. And we are going to meet the manifesto committee of the NPP this coming week. It will be interesting, really. I do not want to tell you who we are going to meet, but it will be really interesting because these guys are availing themselves in a manner that has never been done before. But it is all good for this country's development. Listen, I suspect when President Mahama talks about a big infrastructure push, probably he says so based on the background of the coronavirus pandemic. Don't forget, anytime there's been some shift, some uncomfortable shift in the global scheme of things, the global economy, you do need certain kinds of interventions. I'm saying this rather reluctantly as somebody who does not like Keynesian economics, and I'm a Milton Friedman guy. But I yield to the fact that when the world has suffered certain major shifts, you want to see the state take the commanding height of the economy and do some interventions. I suspect President Mahama is suggesting, ex-President Mahama, by the way, is suggesting that his big push will be in the arena of infrastructure. Don't forget the United States, after the financial crisis, Obama did the big push as well. invested in infrastructure to boost, at least to create some sort of demand by employing a number of hands, orderlies, and all of that, so that you can create that type of demand for an economy. So that may be understood, but it is also important to juxtapose that big push by the overarching question of where exactly are resources going to come from. You see, one of the things that has plagued the development in this country is about the inability of political actors to actualize or activate the whole idea of revenue receipts. We have not heard significantly from President Mahama on the issues about where his $10 billion is going to come from. Never mind. I mean, I'm sure you'd say that, well, this government promised not to borrow, but they borrowed as if they borrowed us into an iceberg, a debt iceberg. Well, we can understand that, but we want fresher ideas, because the point really is that, and I think we asked the independent candidate this question as well, where will resources come from? Do you want to have an optimal tax regime, a flat tax regime, where you decide that, look, these are my set goals, and exactly these are the resource envelopes I'm going to use? We haven't heard that. Now, to dovetail that conversation into the broader environment conversation that President Mahama wants us to have, I must say, ex-President Mahama again, it's a title you have for life anyway, so permit me if I interchangeably use it. I think that if he talks about the environment, I think clearly it's one of the things we need to look at. But does it mean his infrastructure would include covering drains, making sure that we are not beaten by mosquitoes? Is he also talking about probably investing into the other arena of maybe trying to bring back the DDT conversation? I'm a DDT person, by the way, because I think the DDT was used to eradicate malaria in the West. And the environmentalists backed out only because my cousin wrote a very bad book called The Silent Spring that made it look as if the DDT was eating the eggs of the American bald eagle. And because of that, DDT was misused. DDT is an interesting conversation. Let me not digress, but I'm just saying that in this environmental conversation, is it talking preventive health? Are we looking at, wasn't it my good friend Major Kwashiga, who may so rest in memory, who suggested that preventive health care was a much better approach to maybe reactive healthcare approaches, which leads us to spend millions of money doing sanitation programs. This government has set aside almost eradicated because it's wasted almost $50 million without any corresponding value in return. Is it the Mahama's wish that he's talk about the environment with me, that is going to empower local councils, which really is who have the authority to undertake sanitation related programs? I want to hear that. So when I hear big pushes, of course, in development economics, you do hear big push. I mean, the likes of Jeffrey Sachs and his cohorts believe that the world was saved, Africa was going to be saved by the big push idea, where you invest a lot of money into the country. Look, I'm sure the NPP is coming back to say, well, listen, your big push idea is already in motion, because somehow we've also invested in the sub-issues of education, which would encourage people to have the wherewithal in order to build a critical middle-level manpower-based skills. You do not want to ask me what I think about that. I'm only thinking that when the NPP suggests that they have invested money in the softer skills for us to take off in the foreseeable future in a rather middle-level manpower-based skills, that is another. Unfortunately, I'm not too sure that is the intention of some of these interventions, because otherwise the TVED would see a lot more interventions rather than the grammarian approach of having a lot more of our SHS candidates go through the schools without education passing through them. But having said all of that, I think that if the question were asked, which of the two parties seems to have, in the first 4 years, because that's what your producer gave me to speak to, I must confess, look, the NDC, the first 4 years of the NDC was turbulent. I mean, the economy was under 40% per the Imani fiscal scale, but infrastructure was huge. And they scored the first half of the NDC government by 2015. They had scored 47% on the Imani scale, which included a very not too pleasant performance of the economy, less than 40% based on the scale. The infrastructure was hovering around 60-something%, which was interesting. I've just forgotten the figure, but it was around 60%, I think. Now, fast forward the NPP, the first half of the administration, which we analyzed. Infrastructure, obviously, they counted even 6 types of infrastructure-related activities. We counted 21. But if you put all of that in percentage terms, it dwarfs what the NDC did in the first half of their government. But economy-wise, they scored 54-point-something%, which meant that before the pandemic broke, the economy, on paper at least, was headed for good returns, really. I mean, nobody can say anything about that. But we can have a conversation as to the real impact of this conversation on the economy and whether it was impacting a lot of people rather than the expenditure that was being done in such a way that the real sector did not see effect. Let's not forget that the economy's growth also came on the back of significant amount of oil. But the two parties now have had an opportunity to have been impaired by the shocks to the global economy at the time, plus a fair amount of mismanagement on the part of the NDC at the time. And then back to the NPP, which has now had the pandemic. But unfortunately, I also yield to President Mahama's diatribe that I think 3 weeks of a lockdown should not have exposed us for us to run with our hands in between our legs to the IMF to take advantage of a rapid transfer facility, which the NPP cleverly now suggests that it was entitled, everybody was entitled to it, every country was entitled to it. The issue really, and I agree with President Mahama, that if you have built a resilient economy, in spite of Imani still 54%, 3 weeks of lockdown should not have made you run around. Which brings me back to the last point I want to make before my good friend Ofori comes in.
Yeah.
Is that what economy are we building, by the way? Look, this brick and mortar things we must start looking at it critically. Are we looking for a situation where the government will still be spending on the national insurance scheme when we can actualize and ensure private pathways to prosperity in that sector? Currently, the entry barriers for private insurance companies in the insurance industry is too high, right? We're leaving the government alone to be saddled with all these, and it's not pretty to be registering a lot of sick people on the scheme and making it look like it's an achievement. I don't understand that. You're putting people into poverty and you say you have achieved, let's clap for you. No, I think it is better to optimize private pathways and ensure that we are building a critical healthcare sector. I think that when it comes to infrastructure as well, we need to actualize the private pathways as well. Because look at the beautiful UGMC facility. Never mind that it was dogged with a number of controversies by the private actors and what have you. But that was what came handy when coronavirus struck. Some people said they were going there for holiday, I suspect. I'm sure they would like to live there forever. But the point I'm making is that you saw a beautiful intersection of the private and public actors where private money was being utilized. I want to hear President Mahama tell us the country, is it going to look for private support? In fact, it was Kwesi Ndu who suggested in his 2016 campaign that he's going to build roads and toll them. And I think he's been practical and he could do it. I want to hear President Nanado tell me that he's 88, originally 88, now 111, plus another 10 or 15 or so, where the money will be coming from and where exactly is going to be the place of private actors. We should not have infrastructure littered all over the place without any private, control, and then leaving them at the mercy of the weather. I saw President Kufuor's, some of his housing units still languishing in abject independence without being utilized, all because there was the private element that was missing. I think a particular conversation about that must be had. I'll rest here for now.
All right, thank you very much. Now let me quickly finish with Nano Ofori, who's the national chair of the PPP. Then we can come back in and do Suhini's final round on this, and then after that we will handle the matter of the voters registration exercise. So Nano Ofori,
yes, my brother.
Yes, you are in a rather tight spot, I must say, on this particular one, because you are the chairman of you are the national chairman of a political party that will contest the election. You have the two parties that have won elections, the past 7 elections, talking about what they will do and what they will not do and their records. You are yet to bring out a candidate, so we don't know exactly where you even stand in terms of a manifesto or what the agenda will be.
On the contrary, we stand at a very powerful position to be able to make a very meaningful input. And I would like to extend my greetings to your good self, to Dr. Endum and his wife, to my former national chairman, Electoral, who is celebrating his 44th wedding anniversary with his beautiful wife. I extend the greetings, and then to the entire PPP family. I would also like to thank Frank Nkujo for the effort with Imani in trying to expand the platforms for us to all be able to engage and listen to the 10 thoughts, because it is the accumulation of all these thoughts that will help us to develop as a nation. And as I have already criticized the media in terms of your policy of exclusion, and that you only focus on 2 people, as if the Constitution talks about a duopoly of these people. We have a multi-party democracy as enshrined in our Constitution. And I think the quicker the media platforms and other platforms acknowledge this, the better we'll be as a people. And so I push for Imani and Franklin Kujo to be able to get the resources to put all of us on the platform, not just the quote-unquote smaller parties, because that also seems to put a certain inherent weakness on us, but alternative voices in the political dispensation. And I'm sure that as he moves along, he will improve and tighten and make available to us this space. We are grateful for the beginning. Having said that, you see, when you talk about analyzing the Fourth Republic, it is these 2 people who have ruled and they have brought us to where we are. So then you ask yourself, where we are as a nation, is it good? What have we achieved in this Fourth Republic, or even from independence, in the development of our structures, our nation, our economy, our processes, our infrastructure? Where are we? We have listened to, within the last couple of months, people in NDC lambasting former leaders in the NDC. We have read books which are talking about orchestrated plans to shut somebody up.
Really?
We have listened to the MPP that talks about this administration is better than Kufuor administration in trying to also silence their own and their own history and their own record. So it is not me or the PPP that's going to tell you that these parties have not done well. It is their own who are now pointing fingers at their own history and what they have done. And so when we are talking about what have these people done, I have said this time and time again. When you come here, as my brothers in the studio have done, and pontificate on the number of projects that they did, and another person comes and pontificates on projects. These are not fundamental in terms of transforming of a nation and of an economy. I would like to hear from these two people who have been at the helm of affairs. Sometimes they speak as if they are the PPP looking for an opportunity to come and rule. They have ruled. They have already ruled, and their track record is there for all of us to analyze. And indeed, they are analyzing their own track records. And if within those two parties, they are analyzing their own track records and their own history, then me sitting here, it is easy for me. Because I will say that we as a people, we have failed in transforming the minds and the hearts of the people, and to give us a direction which offers hope to the Ghanaian that the tomorrow can be better, and that me as a Ghanaian can do for self, sustain self, build for self in our own economy, and then do a transformational shift from a Guggenberg economy to that of self-resilience and self-independence.
But hold on. The numbers, the electoral numbers do not support this assertion about the people. The people have listened to these two parties, and the people overwhelmingly have backed them over the past 25 years.
My brother, this is why the dialogue that we are having and what Mr. Kujo and Imani and the people that are doing. You, the media platform, let me tell you about some of our historical regions. In 2008, the last 1 month of election, you cut us off your platforms, and we were not even given the voice to come and say to our people what is it that we wanted to do.
Certainly not at Citi.
My brother, look, certainly not 2012, 2016. We had to go out and create our own media outlets in order to be heard and for people to even understand what is it that we want to do. Then you talk about overwhelmingly, let me tell you, the process was rigged against somebody like the PPP. And
who rigged the process against the PPP, sir?
2016 is a clear example for which you know about this. As we were all competing, expending resources, launching manifestos, going on the ground, making our case known to the people, a referee came and took us out of the process and took Dr. Indum out of the process. And we spent so much time in court. Within with 2 months to election, 1 month was taken out and you spend all the time in court. A day in politics is like a million years. You tie my hands behind my back, and everybody on the ground that we have cultivated, people who believed in us. And as you understand, the party was set up in 2012. So everybody is coming from somewhere. And then you go and you pollute the system. You rig the system. You tie our hands behind our back. We suspend campaign. We come into the court. For 3 weeks, we are in the court. The court says that the actions of the EC were capricious in nature, and they ruled against the EC. Then we won the case. It was a Friday. We started campaign back Saturday, Sunday. Monday, we were back at the Supreme Court because they appealed the decision. Do you have any idea what you did to us what was done to us in terms of the funding we had put in, the campaign messaging that we have placed, the mobilization of the people on the ground? And people were saying that, if an animal, you cut off the head, the rest of the body is dead. And so you do this to us, then you come back to tell me that we perform abysmally. I would have rather thought that the media would say that since you got about 114,000 votes at the presidential, you had over 230,000 votes at the parliamentary level. Had this not been done to you, we could extrapolate that times 5 or times 10. This is what reasonably we could have achieved. And we had seats that we were second in many constituencies that we could have won. But all of these things came at our detriment. And then so to say that the people have overwhelmingly done this, it's not the case.
Okay.
The system was rigged against us. And that is why we are saying that part of what Imani is doing is a recognition of a system that does not allow any other players to come in. And that they rig it and try and make it a 2-horse race. Now, Citi, having brought me here with my brother sitting there, you have done something that is not, it's the paranormal. It's the paranormal.
Thank you.
Because people always bring 2 people there and say that this is the alternative. These are the 2 main alternatives. But if you want the lesser alternatives, go and look somewhere else and look at those other people. And that is part of the process that I say is wrong with everything that we are doing. Now, coming back into what these people have done in this 4th Republic.
Yeah, you have 5 minutes, so don't worry.
Oh, you know, you said that you finish with me quickly, and I wanted to react to you finishing with me quickly. What it means? Is this what it means?
It means you have 5 minutes. No, you have 5 minutes.
Throwing me away off
I can never throw you away. Don't worry. 5 minutes. Go on.
My brother, what, you know, the Progressive People's Party, we kept our so-called, our manifesto very simple. We are the ones who talked about preventive health care.
When did you talk about it?
Oh, if you read our 10-point agenda, 2012, 2016, you will see that when you get to, I think, point number 4 or so, it talks about our preventive health care. And that preventive health care is our health agenda. That 70% of the things that we spend money on in the health sector are preventable diseases.
Oh.
Cholera, malaria. These things are preventable and they have been eradicated in other countries. And the United States that my brother Franklin talked about, they had malaria. And they put together a policy and a system to get rid of malaria. And the DDT, the mass spraying, and the efforts that were done in the US, they got rid of malaria. So you today, that you say that we should live with malaria. Do you see how these people have failed? They have failed because they are telling you that something that other countries have eradicated, you know, we as a nation, as a people, we must live with it. Follow the process of what people did. And let me tell you, people cannot go around other countries using processes to eradicate. Then they come to us to tie our hands and say that if we do this, it's a health hazard and all of those things. My brother, if we get rid of malaria, you have gotten rid of about 50% of the preventable diseases and the pressure on our healthcare system to be able to move forward. If you get away, if we deal with cholera in a sanitized, we talked about sanitation police. We said that there must be what you used to call tankers. We must bring the sanitation police back, empower them. Then we also said that if the president who is there appointing all these MMDCs, you give them as part of their directive to clear their environment and make it sanitary, and they don't deliver, you sack them, you bring in more. No? We can deal with these sanitary issues. The Progressive People's Party have been saying this non-stop. And it's unfortunate that you have not been listening and you have not been hearing for you to understand that what people are talking about and looking for a massive change, you know. The Progressive People's Party, we have been at the forefront. Let me tell you, when we said elect MMDC so that they can be accountable to the people, those two parties went against it. And those two parties are the ones who stopped the process. Because those two parties did not imbibe and understand and appreciate the impact of the people, a system of the people, for the people, by the people. And what that will mean in the process, in the chain reaction, and the grassroots change that will take place. Look, people go into their DC office, MCA office to complain, They are walked out because that man or that woman is not accountable to the people. He is accountable to appointees in Accra. This is part of our manifesto 2012-2016. And it was not done because the perpetuators of this process did not believe it. So they look for easy and cozy excuses to be able to not implement this and take it through. The separation of the Minister of Justice from Attorney General, that is part of the process that we believe will transform this nation, has not been done well. The special prosecutor thing, we criticized it because fundamentally, essentially, nothing different has been done. The same structures that he is supposed to rely on, that we say have been corrupted or whatever it is, you have to use the same structures, and then the Attorney General cedes some of his power to this person to do the work. We said there should be a total separation, that the Minister of Justice should be an advisor to the President. The Attorney General should sit there for you and I to be able to protect the state. So if you are looking for policies and ideas that are transformative in its implementation with the people, it is the PPP that has put it there.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Nanofori.
Let me. I beg with you. You are the.
Okay, 1 minute. 1 minute. 1 minute.
An opportunity.
1 minute
to express myself.
1 minute. Express.
You, my brother.
Express.
The public sector needs reformation. In between life and death, when you are born, you are registered by the public sector. When you pass away, you are registered by the public sector. The public sector must be reformed so that it can be more responsive to that of the private sector and the people who use it, in for them to deliver service to the people who are you and I. So the public service itself, there are institutions that are being on the state purse that do not need to be on the state purse. Subvented agencies, they need to be restructured in the way that they can generate their own income and be able to offer better conditions of service to their workers. And so you need to reform the public service itself. You need to get rid of some. Look, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation is like a triangular system in terms of its workforce.
So Nana, the 1 minute is up.
Skilled,
Nana, 1 minute is up.
Skilled people at the top. They have masons and carpenters and all of that at the bottom, reflecting an old system. It needs to be reformed.
All right. Thank you, Nanofori. So Nanofori was the national chair of the PPP, sharing his thoughts on that particular round of conversation. So I'll wrap this up and then we can talk about the EC numbers, because also very, very important conversation for the second phase. I don't want to dwell too much. So Suhini, we've seen the big push. So now it looks like your manifesto is taking place, even though we're expecting the launch later this month. We've heard of the free public health. We've now heard the big push. You finally admitted you are not against free SHS.
Finally?
Oh, yes.
We've never been against it.
Okay.
But you guys feel actually...
We heard the former president speak.
They even sponsored
but he's always...
60
anyway,
advertisements.
You see, he's always...
The free SHS.
We've always been...
My brother, this is why sometimes I get angry.
But I'm not very why angry.
The PPP is the one who took government to court for them to implement. In fact, we took it all the way to the Supreme Court for them to implement the directive principles of state policy, Article 36, 38.
Yeah.
And we said that, and the policy of the PPP in terms of education is that no child left behind. And as part of the policy, the free SHS is a subset of the policy. And we said that we should abolish this animal we call BEC, because it is adverse, it is against the tenets of the Constitution, that a child must be in school from KG to SHS without a break, without interruption. We talked about the 100,000 children at the BEC level failing exams, becoming
for point is made. Don't worry, I'll come back to you. I'll give you time.
I am saying that no, they are not bringing anything new. These two people have been at the helm of affairs in this Fourth Republic. It
No,
was
it's okay.
beginning as
That's a bit-
it is now that they are coming.
Okay,
That is
don't worry.
what I don't understand.
No,
I have the luxury to say that, but they don't have the luxury to say that because they have been at the helm of affairs in this Fourth Republic, and we are where we are because of their rule.
Thank you. Nano Fori, National Chair of the PPP. So
I'll just
chairman of the PPP does make some interesting points, though, and it's an interesting observation. You can take it as part of your response. That
I was just
the
making-
MPP and the NDC sound like you are novices at this. He should sound like you. You can't sound like the way you sound.
Well, Godfred, I must admit that it's interesting listening to Nano Fori and also Franklin Kujo. But I just wanted to make a point clear that the NDC or former President Mahama has not finally.
We've always
been for free SHS. We've always been, law abiding to the point that, if you recall, former President Mahama made the argument that it is nobody's idea. And if we want to credit the idea at all, it should be given to those who framed our constitution. And so nobody can be against free SHS, because if you are, then you are against our constitution.
Okay.
Because our constitution prescribes clearly that education must be free progressively. So you can't be against free education.
Okay.
It is the how that we have always had disagreements with, how to implement that. And so it is not right to say that we have finally said we are not against. We've always been for free SHS. Okay. We've always been for it. But the approach is what we have disagreed among ourselves. And let me commend Franklin Kujo and the Imani Africa for the platform that they have created, especially for the independent candidates. I mean, I agree with him that a lot of refreshing ideas came out of that platform. Again, listening to Nano Fori tells you that ideas to run this country are not restricted to the NPP, NDC platforms. And that is why it is critical to have a government that is all-inclusive, a government that will tolerate dissent, a government that will listen to your criticisms, even if they don't take it on board, but will not make you feel unimportant.
Do you get that from the NPP?
A government that tolerates dissent. It is important because, you see, across the world, we need to accept a certain reality. Truth is that two parties lead in these countries. It does not mean that because it is so, other platforms that will serve as idea incubations should not be encouraged. But what is critical to that process is that at every point in time, a government and a president must be willing to take on board the ideas that come from these platforms. Let us not, and I'll borrow the phrase of my brother Eric, be so arrogant with our intellectualism that we think that our ideas, are sacrosanct and can't be questioned and shouldn't be questioned. And anybody who questions our approach must either be clamped down or considered unintelligent and ridiculed and harassed and intimidated. And that is the state in which we are in today, where journalists are, intimidated, where media, houses are harassed, some shut down, where, it is no longer safe to express dissent and to do so passionately.
You've allowed him to go back to rehash the same thing.
Don't worry, it's my position to allow him. Don't worry.
So I'm saying that
he has 7 minutes.
I'm saying that it is commendable that we have these platforms and these ideas. But what is critical to those ideas, the realization of those ideas, is a government that is more tolerant, peaceful, and inclusive. And you see, my brother Nano Fori says that some of the things that we talk about are not fundamental. I respectfully disagree with him. And maybe this should also go to Dr. Bawumia. When you want to know how fundamental some of the interventions President Mahama, for example, with the NDC did in the last 4 years, it is important for you to look at how we have dealt with COVID. how we have dealt with COVID. For example, it took investments of the previous government into the stabilization fund that was set up by President Mahama and the NDC to support the budget when revenue shortfalls hit as a result of COVID. That's fundamental. That you can't discount. That was forward-looking. The setting up of stabilization fund was forward-looking. Again, it took the University of Ghana Medical Center, the Dodowa Hospital, and the Bank of Ghana hospitals for us to be able to manage COVID. You can't say that is not fundamental. Sometimes the critical nature of some of these investments are felt when crisis like we are going through hit. You can't say those were not fundamental investments and projects. Again, today, this government and Dr. Bawumia will pride themselves because they are reducing electricity and giving free water. Godfred, President Mahama, between 2012 and the NDC, between 2012 and 2016, increased water capacity from 63% to 76%.
How did you do that?
By constructing the Kumau and 3 town water projects, the Pang water projects, the tertiary desalination plants, and the several other,
the tertiary
water
desalination plant that has been shut down several times.
Well, it's been shut down, but again, for political reasons.
No, because there's a difficulty in getting a proper model to let it run.
There's no difficulty in providing the people water.
There's no money.
Well,
there was no model, and that seems to be a problem.
You see.
The infrastructure is there.
That is another discussion. That's another discussion you want us to have.
But if you are building something, you must have a plan for how that thing should run.
And it was running until a new government that is clueless
was one.
No, it was running until a government that is clueless comes in. So you don't fault. It was running, wasn't it?
Well,
it was providing water.
It was running something.
It was providing water, which is essential.
That the residents did not like.
No, but it was providing water. Now they don't even have water. Which one is better? It was providing water.
That is better.
No, it was, yes, there's best. But the fact that you don't have, best does not mean you don't have better.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so I'm saying that as a result of those fundamental investments, water expansion or coverage increased, and that's the record.
Right.
I mean, I am not saying it. From 63 to about 76%, we increased the volume of water from 102.5 million gallons. I mean, by 102.5 million gallons. That is fundamental. You cannot say that this is not fundamental. It's as a result of this water availability that you can stand on a platform and say you are giving water free, because you can't put nothing on nothing. If you didn't have the water, you wouldn't be able to give it free because of COVID. Again, go to the energy sector. My brother will sit here and talk about Dumso, even though we all know that Dumso hit President Rawlings, Dumso hit President Kufuor, and Dumso hit President Mills. But when it hit a visionary leader, President Mahama, he took responsibility and said it must end. And so made investments that has actually ensured that President Akufo-Addo does not experience Dumso.
But and today, with his own attendance problems.
You see, there is in this life, there's always going to be an opportunity cost. You solve problems, and as a result of solving that problem, you can find another problem that has to be solved.
But as a government, shouldn't you solve problems in a way that does not end?
I'll tell you, for example, how he solved the problems.
People?
No, I'll tell you how he solved the problems.
Okay.
Apart from the plants.
Quickly, please.
Apart from the plants that he invested in, he also saw the fuel challenge, which also led to the facilitation of the Ghana gas to produce our own fuel so that we reduce costs of purchasing crude. Then he saw the financial challenge and how the energy sector was indebted to many financial institutions, threatening the existence of those financial institutions. And even in an election year, to solve that problem, he introduced an energy sector levy. Not comfortable to him, but important to deal with that problem.
Okay.
And so, if that ESLA was not mismanaged as we see today, maybe some of the problems you talk about wouldn't be with us.
All right. Please wrap up.
If the proceeds from the ESLA were applied for its intended purposes, some of the problems that you talk about or see today may not have arisen. So I'm saying that when we talk about these things, it is not, illuminating to say they are not fundamental. And within COVID and how we have managed COVID, I've just walked you through how some of these investments have come in handy as we tackle COVID. Health, water, energy delivery, and even our budgetary support as far as the stabilization fund is concerned.
Thank you very much.
But I agree, again, Godfred, that the MPP has done better by making us pay more for fuel. They have done better by increasing the debt. They have done better in terms of corruption. They have done better in terms of the exchange rate. In fact, even the cost of road under the Sino-Hydro project, which used to be an average of 1 million Ghana cedis per kilometer, was costed 6 million Ghana cedis per kilometer. That's better.
That's a palpable force.
That's doing better. Oh, it is there. It was in Parliament.
Okay, Godfred.
Harry, go on.
I'm still a bit confused as to what the key messaging for the NDC is in the quest for this particular election. You know why?
No.
You see?
No, just one.
No, let me finish. I didn't ask you a question. I'm talking to Godfred. You see, it's very simple, right? And you can overstretch any argument or any conversation if you want. Even this gas thing that he's talking about. President Kufuor is on record to have found oil in this country in commercial quantities. You see, and I'll give you a bit of a historical antecedent. When the NDC took over after President Kufuor, right? 2-3 years down the line, we started being able to reap the benefits of Ghana as an oil-producing country with all the attendant benefits that comes with it. And our GDP, right, improved to almost about 14% or so. And Ghana was meant to be the fastest growing economy in the world. Do you remember that?
Yes.
All right. Then guess what? 2-3 years down the line, we had gone from a country that was meant to be the fastest growing economy in the world. And Franklin alluded to the fact. And you see, once we want to talk about issues to do with the economy, right, you can't use words like, well, intimidation, the country is not, but you have to stick to the tenets of what a true economic analysis is. And Franklin gave a certain clear indication, even though I think that his, the marks that he gave us is a bit low, but I agree with him in terms of principle, that in terms of how this economy has been managed, the MPP is far better when it comes to that. Now, again... But you must understand that it's a curious situation. Franklin I'm just saying that I agree with him. But I think that we even did better than he actually alluded to. That it was surprising that he didn't listen, but even I'll come to that. I'll deal with that issue, right? Now, so for Suhini here, right, and he gives the opportunity to the likes of Nanofori, right, and even Franklin to suggest that because we have been in power over a period and we are the two major political parties to have tasted power over the period, it also almost looks as if that we keep on saying the same things over and over again. I would expect that a political party that was in government, that lost an election by close to 1 million votes, right, will come back with something totally different, a new narrative, a new style, and even a new orientation. Because the business as usual is not going to wash. You see, Ghanaians had an opportunity to gauge and judge for themselves the stewardship of the NDC for a period of 8 years, right? And came with a verdict that the administration, the management, and how this country had been governed was abysmal, and therefore gave them that resounding defeat. And I would expect that something different would happen, but they're not doing that. Now, this conversation surrounding if the economy was resilient, why would we go to the IMF and everything? I also beg to differ. Yeah. And the reason is very simple. In a situation where even the most biggest economies in the world, advanced economies in the world, have had to be impacted negatively as a result of this COVID situation. And Ghana, that is part of the whole IMF fraternity, right? Pays its dues, and these are legitimate things that you can actually go out there, right, and get. Decides that we want to take advantage of that so that we can bring a certain level of alleviation and mitigate the negative impact of the COVID on the citizenry, the ordinary Ghanaian citizen. It is not the same as a government that will run an economy aground, go to the IMF on the pretext of seeking policy credibility, and actually go for a full-blown out with all the attendant conditionalities that comes with it. They're two different things.
Let him go.
They're two different. They're two. How am I repeating myself? You see, so they're two separate things. And even the issue to do with water. In the last few weeks, and then I'm sure you're privy to that. The president was in the northern region and some parts of the country, Yape and all of those things, plus other water projects that have been launched by this government. And I'm saying that we have to be extremely careful in the way we analyze some of these projects that the NDC even goes out there touting as the achievements of JM. Because the same NDC and the same JM himself is on record to have said that some of these projects are actually projects that were started under the watch of President. But that is not that notwithstanding. The issues to do with education and how that has been implemented, the verdict is going to be based on what the people of this country will give on 7 December 2020. Because, and I keep saying this emotionally, as much emotionally as I can, there are people in this country, there are families, generations of families in this country who hitherto will never have had an opportunity. He was discounting the issue to do with fronting for food and jobs. And you see, of course, I agree. Listen. I agree with that school of thought that there are certain conversations that we've been having since I was a child, where the models of planning or the ways that we'll be able to use to transform this economy has been conversations that we've had over time, and that we need to elevate the discourse and activate certain things that will make us grow to the pedestals that we want to get to. I agree entirely. Digitizing the economy, activating a whole new digital economy, and all of those things are very important conversations that we want to have. But whilst you're doing that, you need to almost also focus on the fundamentals. That's exactly what this government is doing. Now, if you go through this process, and Ghanaians are given an opportunity to go out there and make a determination on 7 December 2020, they will definitely make a determination that will progress and improve their well-being. Again, he was talking about Doomso. And you see, always try to create a certain impression that, well, Doomso started under this person and everything. The NDC took over power. And we did not start experiencing Doomso in this country until September 2012.
That's not true.
You can check.
That's not true.
You can check.
Go on.
You can check. When the NDC took power, you can check. I mean, we are on this platform. We can check before we go.
President Mills's complaint.
Listen.
We'll check this.
That the news was in the salon, and when the lights went off.
September 2012. Clearly. And you can see all the load shedding schedules and all of those things from the ECG at the time. It's there. It's there. The graphic and other newspapers in this country are there. You can go and check. They are archived. You can go and check. And then you sit down and allow Ghanaians to suffer for 2012, end of September, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016. But if you are coming to Citi now, if we are like having this program, we can't even be hearing ourselves because you'll be hearing the sounds of generators making all sorts of noise.
Also to be
for
fair,
that period,
and a problem like that doesn't happen overnight.
And that is the point. And you asked him a very intelligent question. Even whilst they were solving the problem, what did he bring? Right? It had to take this government to come back again, to think outside the box and find ways of restructuring the financing of that particular sector to ensure that, for me as an ordinary Ghanaian or for anybody out there, the most important thing to them is that their lights are on for industries, micro, small-scale industries to be able to use that, to be able to also support in that developmental agenda. That is what is important to them. Now, their lights are on. Yeah. Government also goes ahead and decides that in these circumstances, and these really trying circumstances and moments, let's find a way of mitigating some of the suffering of the Ghanaian people to provide them with these services. So you can overstretch every argument as far as you want. But the truth of the matter is that it's clear. It is very clear that the NPP administration, in all the things, you see, when they start having conversations surrounding, well, people are being intimidated and everything, I laugh, because we all know the historical antecedents of this, my friends here. Historical, and they go and sit on platforms and stand on various platforms. I will tell you that this is our past, this is our history, and that we even have the penchant to unleash and intimidate. I mean, do you remember the infamous, my own brother, Godfred Akoto Boafo, issues to do with the moderator, the Presbyterian moderator in this country?
We heard about that, yeah.
Didn't you hear it? Mm-hmm. So many people, even my good friend Franklin, and the sort of
so you don't
intimidation. And that is why I am saying that, you see, if it is wrong, and you know me, I will not sit here and countenance people being intimidated or people being assaulted or people's rights being infringed on porn, right? If it's wrong, it's wrong. But to come from someone like Suhuyini is extremely rich.
But Suhuyini is not a violent person.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That is why I'm saying that in all of these circumstances, right, to almost even create an impression that there's some state-sponsored intimidation of journalists.
You have to deal with.
But that is why I'm saying that even in all of these circumstances, government had gone ahead to try to ensure that some of these things are forestalled so that it doesn't happen again. And you can, because once you do that on a political platform like this, then I can go out there and even try to bring about some most sensitive things that have happened in this country under your watch. Okay. Right? And you don't want to do that, because when you do that, you infringe on other people's sensibilities, and that is wrong. And so we can do all the politicking that we like. We can focus, as far as I'm concerned, we can focus our energies on maintaining a certain discourse, right? That will create an impression to the Ghanaian people that we are bringing in divergent views, and that's what we are trying to position. But once you start this conversation about the NPP has done this, the government has done this, and all of this, when your track record, economy-wise, doesn't match up, healthcare-wise, doesn't match up, education-wise, doesn't match up, and all employment-wise, doesn't match up.
When we return, the big issue will delve into the electoral numbers. We'll be back. You won't get your 1 minute to read it.
Free swipes and enjoy greater security with a card that turns banking on its head. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Whoa. What's going on, babe?
Have you heard of Wheel of Fortune?
No, what's that?
Register on betplanet.com.gh. Select Wheel of Fortune and win a prize.
What? Wait, I'm just gonna win a prize because I'm new?
Yes, but to win a prize, you only deposit 10 Ghana Cedi.
Before I win, I have to pay?
Really? So you're comparing 10 Ghana Cedi to an iPhone, an iPad, 25,000 Ghana Cedi? Eh? Okay, then spin. Yes! Wait, we are rich! We are rich!
welcome back to the big issue. A couple of messages have come in. Let me just take those, and then we can go to the matter of the voters registration exercise that finally ended. We now have the total numbers, a few issues to be dealt with in terms of minors and some foreigners on the register, deduplication to be dealt with. Once the EC is done with that, we will have the full picture. But a bit of controversy also emerging with some registration exercise happening abroad that some Ghanaians are not too happy about, because they say the EC has been selective. It's just so there's a bit of an issue there as well. We'll try and make sense of. The NDC is also saying that it wants an independent audit of the EC numbers. We are going to find out why they need an independent audit when they were present at every registration center in this country. But just to take a few messages, MPP should give us a break, says Kweku from La Paz. Elections are about MPP. As an incumbent government, they have not performed. They cannot throw dust in our eyes. Nobody can survive 4 more years of Nana. Moses in Bawe says the arguments for shutting down the tissue desalination plants was untenable and a lazy approach to solving issues. If you have a range of products, some profitable, others lost, as leaders you manage them in such a way that you can recover the losses from the profitable ones. This means that you recover the losses of tissue from all the other water plants. That is why it is a public service. Our economy died from underlying conditions and not COVID. That's an interesting text message. Xylix from Xylix Dwayne in London. Xylix, how are you? Regular listener. He says Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajiman gave a spectacular speech. Well, that was a long time ago. Babamu from Tamale says this government has performed better than the previous NDC government. The alternative of the NDC is scary and empty. I want to ask you one thing. If your father laid a foundation for a structure and purchased materials down and you came to start building, can you say you did it? Please let us all know that without basic education there will be no free SHS. Who sees the growth of the basics? We observers are watching. That's a question. We observers are watching, says Daniel at WBA. I wonder where that is. Godfred, the last 8 years have seen the devaluation of the cedi thanks to the MPP and the NDC. This is largely due to the fact that the structure of the economy has not changed. It is still an import-dependent economy. The two political parties have failed to resurrect once flourishing companies like Palugu, Bonsai, and Kumasi Shoe Factory. Imagine the number of people the number of jobs that will be created and the impact on our city and the economy. The last 8 years has seen increase in the cost of livelihoods. Ghanaians should vote them out come December. This is Isifu Ishola from Insawam. So keep the messages coming through via our WhatsApp line 0549 986 996, 0549 986 996, or 0550 585 832. You can also reach us on Twitter at Citi973. The hashtag is the big issue. We're streaming on Facebook, on our Facebook pages, Citi 97.3 and Citi TV. So go watch and share that link. Let's talk about the Electoral Commission. And I'll start this one from Franklin before I come back into Suhini and Eric Amwa-Kunchum. So Nano Furi and Franklin will start this conversation. Let's take a look at the data that the EC has put out and a couple of interesting revelations.
Franklin and I have missed one round though. Anyway, we are smaller parties, so
don't worry. We are making progress enough for you. Now
it's all good. It's all good. So sometimes when you see that I'm like a bat out of hell when I get opportunity, this is some of the reason why. Because I seldom get it.
You will get more enough for you. Next week you are coming in studio. Next week we are next week we are in studio with you. So just to look at some of the numbers and what we have been able to glean or learn, because the devil is in the detail as always when you decide to look at the EC numbers. Overall, we have 16,963,306 persons on the voters register. If you look at the age category, the highest is 20 years and above with 15.5 million persons fall into that category. 18 years is 762,944. 612,104 persons are 19 years and below. Now, if you look at the regions and the differences using there's an interesting way to do this. You can do this with the 2016 voters register. You can do this with the 2019 which was used for the district assembly elections, and that will inform you differently. But the Electoral Commission decided to go with the numbers from the 2016. We have the 2019 numbers as well. If time permits us, we'll run those numbers for you. But quickly, if you look at the regions, the region that gained the most, Greater Accra region from the 2016. Greater Accra, per the new 2020 voters register, has increased its registrants with 445,815, forming 35%. From there, you then go to, if you are doing you can then go to the northern region, which has added 203,000 persons more for 16%. You can then do the Bono Ahafo region, which has added 149,316. The Ashanti region has added 141,237. And indeed, if you do run the Ashanti region numbers by the 2019 numbers, you would notice a significant reduction, because 2016, for instance, Ashanti region had 2.8 million relatively. In 2019, it went up to 3,067,000. It has fallen to 3,013,000. So quite a drop there as well. Now, a couple of other interesting things for you to look out for. If you are looking at the 5 largest districts, for instance, in the Greater Accra region on these numbers, Accra Metro, is the largest in terms of the 4 regions that gained the most. I will just go through that. So Greater Accra, you have Accra Metro, Ga South, Tema Metro, Lejokuku Krowo, and Ga West. So note this down: Accra Metro, Ga South, Tema Metro, Lejokuku Krowo, and Ga West. If you go to the western region, Sekondi Takoradi Metro, Prestia, Huni Valley, followed by Jomoro, Sefiri also, and then interestingly, Sefiri Bibiani Ariaso Bekwai has also shown up. If you're looking at the 5 largest districts in the northern region, you're looking at Tamale Metro, and in Tamale Metro, one of the MPs is sitting here with us, the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Suhini. So Tamale Metro is the largest district in the northern region when it comes to the registrants, followed by Sagnerugu, Nanumba North, Savelugu, Nanton, and then East Gonja. And then in the central region, you're looking at Gomoa East, Asin North, Cape Coast Municipal, Gomoa West, and Mfantsiman. So for the political parties, they will interpret this in their own way. Now, we can also decide to do something a bit interesting. People like constituencies. So let me just share something small from the constituencies, and then I will get to Franklin. So if you look at the provisional figures for Greater Accra, for instance, in terms of the constituency that gained the most numbers at the moment, that would be Dome Kwabenya. Dome Kwabenya has, if I'm reading this correctly, Dome Kwabenya is now 172,907. 172,907. After that, you have Ashaiman, Amasaman. 4th is Adenta. 5th is Medina. 6th is Lejokuku. And there have been drops in some of the constituency numbers as well, which makes very interesting reading. So these are some of the interesting details that have emerged from the voters registration exercise. Franklin, this is all over now. The EC has put together their numbers. What has been your initial impressions of the various angles? Which of the statistics has caught your attention?
Well, let me start off by congratulating the EC for just organizing a registration. But if in terms of the fidelity, the sanctity of the register, I'm sure they failed. The processes leading to this register, unfortunately, was thwarted with a lot of disinterest generated by, should I call it disinterest, but actually stakeholder conversations that were never allowed. I mean, the EC managed to dodge the Chief of the House of Chiefs, had rancorous debates with the NDC and other parties. And then we have a register that was set to be, we had a register that initially was set to be bloated, only for us to come back and return almost the same number that was expected anyway. You see, I think the EC did one thing by spending $150 million to just clean dead names. And dead names don't vote. Dead people don't vote. We were saying that the EC cannot be telling us that it is right to expect 2 million people to be added to the register when the data, going back nearly 3 decades that we've been projecting these numbers, show clearly that it was just possible to have added 2 million persons as they claim to the register if they had done the limited registration. See, in 2006, roughly 630,000 people were registered. I mean, in 2014, we had 928,000 people. In 2016, we had 1 million and a little over 1 million, 46,000 persons registered. And in 2019, what was added was 1.2 million. The only time approximately 1.8 million people wrote down their names in a limited registration exercise was in 2008. And I'll explain. This was due to the exceptional circumstances of the 2004 mass registration exercise. Don't forget that in 2004, photo IDs taken with digital cameras were first introduced. Despite the country having insufficient cameras, the exercise was conducted just over 2 weeks, compared to the 40 days we have been used to since 2012. So when you see that anomaly where people say, oh, why is it that in 2004 the number dropped? The exercise was done in 2 weeks and we have just introduced photo IDs. The situation was such that the total number of voters dropped compared to what was on the 2000 register. So the high number recorded in 2008, which is almost 1.8 million, was thus a correction, and never before or after has similar figures been recorded. So to therefore expect 2 million people to turn up in the midst of a pandemic just after 1 year of registering 1.2 million persons in 2019 was another unfortunate economically, statistically, untruth that was told. So the point to be made again is that if you look at the death rates in this country and the birth rates in this country, what we had was actually consistent. By the way, the EC told us that this new register was going to garner only 30 million people. Just a week before they started the exercise, they revised it to 50 million persons they were expecting. What did they retain? Almost 17 million persons, right? So should we say that the EC, per its own estimation, told us a lie by asking us to pay $150 million to procure a register they knew very well was going to be 50 million people, but went ahead and got nearly 70 million people? Should we say that the register, therefore, by their own estimation, is bloated by 2 million people? Are they going to accept this current figure? But let's even look at the issues about the sanctity of those who have been registered on the roll. Look, we submit. Their own data suggests that nearly 40% of the people who were registered used guarantors, right? This was a system that was said to be the best system and went at great lengths to ensure that people who had initial voter ID cards were taken out of the roll. To now use a guarantor system, which by the way could do, suggested, if not suggested, identified, found out that almost 28% of polling stations had dubious guarantors, which means essentially that half of the number of those who registered through guarantor system should be questioned. Basically, you can't guarantee the sanctity of their registration is in doubt. In fact, it's far worse. If you think that almost 60% of those on the register right now use an NIA card, and the NIA card themselves, almost 80% of those who procure the NIA card almost use guarantor systems. So in effect, we are looking at close to 90% of the people on this register not having been there through proper means, right? Except maybe the passport system. So I'm only submitting to you. Now, first of all, they deceived us by saying that they were going to procure a new register whose numbers were going to be less. The numbers actually show that it's inconsistent with the times. And it was not true that they were going to do double counting. In fact, they were going to engage in double counting if they said that, oh, had we done a limited registration, the number that would have been added would have been 2 million people, forgetting that from 2012 to 2020, almost 1.2 million people would have actually died, given the death rates of this country. That is why when the EC tells you that they register first-time people, almost 1.3 million, it's consistent with the data. I want to now believe that the NPP must move away from this long-held belief that the register was bloated. It was not based on science, logic, or statistics. In fact, the border towns that they claim, apart from the voter suppression issues that were obviously the intimidation that you saw by the military, even then you could see clearly that the so-called K2SAP retained margins that were inconsistent with the times. In fact, I would be worried for the NPP rather to probably take lessons from this register, because what has happened is that their strongholds have some of their strongholds have either marginally reduced or actually drastically reduced. Look at Afano, Bono, and some parts in Ashanti region. Now, the challenge is that, in fact, I don't want to get into the conspiracy.
Yeah, let's not.
No, but let me land. There's a reason why I'm saying this. Anytime the NPP has conducted a new register, they lose the election. I'm sure you noticed that.
Wait, what do you mean by the NPP? The NPP does not conduct.
Oh no! Anytime, let me correct that. Anytime the NPP has been in power and actually promoted
frankly, that's a bit disingenuous.
No, but it's not disingenuous.
It's a bit disingenuous. Because the thing is that
campaign for a new register. That's what he said.
Finish.
And it's true.
But I'm not saying that is likely. I'm not saying that. No, don't worry.
The political interference with the EC is real. I support factors.
Don't be worried at all. I'm not saying that is not.
I'm not worried. I mean, because he needs
what I'm just saying is that
a certain consistency.
What I'm just saying is that we are looking at
arguments.
I'll come to you.
No, I'm just saying that if anybody had benefited from this exercise, it's certainly not the NPP. Because it's in keeping with the times actually. So if you think that it is just numbers that will let you win an election, well, the data has not borne us out. Let me also say something, maybe finally on this matter.
Yes, we don't have too much time.
I worry a lot, and I think this country must at a point in time allow sound statistics and policies to drive conversation. As I've shown you go back and look at the data. The data does not serve anybody in terms of suggesting the register was bloated. In fact, what we have done is that the EC managed to pull a wool over our eyes, and in the process wasted $120 million more than they would have really had. I think this country has reached a stage where we now have to ensure that the next register, and by the way, I would support any new register, by the way, if any government comes into power. But before that will happen, they must ensure that the national ID system is the most sacrosanct. I think the judiciary does a bad job. The executive did not help us. The legislature did not help us. We are statistically, we've actually conferred on ourselves that we are statistically inept. And this must be corrected by doing the proper audit of the EC. The proper audit, which not necessarily what the NDC is calling.
Who will do the proper audit?
Yes, the audit of the EC's processes. Look, don't forget the Auditor General was on his way to audit the assets of the EC to verify whether the $60 million we've invested up to 2019, when they bought a lot of this equipment, as many as 2,000 of these BVR kits, which they used in 2019, whether indeed they were true or not. We need to start auditing the process to ensure that
and then there is
never again would a register would we be spending money in a register registration system. And Mr. Chu, I totally agree with you that knowledge does not lie in the head of think tanks and other people, and that it is certainly true that others have superior knowledge. Unfortunately, ideas are everywhere. Unless you authenticate them, we will not have knowledge. On this score, I think the NPP was so wrong, The data has now served as
No,
claim.
but
that they were-
because you addressed me, can I have like
no,
30
no,
seconds?
no, no,
No,
no,
on
Franklin,
your time is up. Franklin, in fact, your time is up. Franklin, your time is up.
Don't be unfair if I don't get opportunity.
You won't get an opportunity.
Yeah, I know, but on this particular one.
Yeah.
I'm landing.
Okay,
I'm landing.
Land.
The MPP should go back and look at the data and run away from. In fact, they should quickly do away with this statistical voodoo, and that the voter registration was bloated. The data does not serve them the purpose, and the EC should now be tamed into submission that this whole idea of being this triumphalism that they did the register, they only conducted the register, which we had no qualms with, but the fidelity of the register, unfortunately, this is the most. The register that has the most fraudulent registrants on it.
Franklin, your time is up.
Thank you.
One
minute. You see?
Quickly.
No. I mean, come on. It's a conversation.
I'll take it out of his time.
You can take it out of my time.
I'll take it out of his time.
One thing that I did.
So you need to stop shaking your head.
No, I have so many issues I wanted to also respond to, but I respected the fact that you will let me come to my time.
But can we?
One thing that we are going to do this, we will not have a civil discussion. This is the pattern is that you take notes of the things you want to respond to. And you respond to
Gentlemen, yes, you will. On the basis of statistics, right?
Is this a rebuttal?
You are being too respectful.
Actually, listen, on the basis,
it is not. But his name was mentioned.
On the basis of statistics, it's on record that when this register was compiled in 2012. Afarijan is on record to have come out to even say that it is a statistical anomaly. And I just did a cursory
If it is cursory,
if you want, you can start a substantive discussion.
That's a bit unfair.
You can start a substantive discussion.
Gentlemen,
that would be a bit unfair.
Gentlemen,
let me land, and then you can make. Let me land, and you can
control them.
We are dealing with.
I think you should control.
Yeah. And I'm saying that. 2 seconds. I'm saying that.
If your numbers are going to be cursory, let's not go there.
It is not. It's very.
I thought you were responding for personality.
Listen.
Is that a personality?
Let's go.
No, listen. If you have a population of
gentlemen,
it's okay.
Gentlemen,
Eric, you're wasting your time.
I will make my point.
Eric, it's okay. Calm down. Eric, wait.
If you have a population of 31 million, right, and you have an electoral roll of 16.9 million, statistically, and then you have a population of 22 million or so at the time when you had close to 15, just do a country analysis to see if the register was bloated or not. It's simple. Your point is made.
Your point is
now
made.
You have one at 68%, and that was 54%.
Your point
is an indication to Franklin and Co. that maybe they also have to go back and check.
Okay, your point is
when
made.
The EC chair himself has said that it's a statistical anomaly to have 22 million people and have whatever.
When we come back, Nanofori will speak.
Whoa, what's going on, babe?
Have you heard of Wheel of Fortune?
No, what's that?
Register on betplanet.com.gh. Select Wheel of Fortune and win a prize.
What? Wait, I'm just gonna win a prize because I'm new?
Yes, but to win a prize, you only deposit 10 Ghana Cedi.
Before I win, I have to pay?
Really? So you're comparing 10 Ghana Cedi to an iPhone, an iPad, 25,000 Ghana Cedi. Would you me a drink of Uye Pepe?
Okay,
Okay, then spin. Wait, we are ready.
Citi TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access Citi TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access Citi TV on your television. Citi TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. Citi TV, it's your world.
Okay, so we are back on the big issue. No, for you. No, for Uzu.
The alternative party.
Yes, the alternative party, the PPP. Let's hear you.
The PPP.
The central region, hold on for me. The central region is a very interesting place for you because that's where a lot of your numbers come from.
I will touch it.
Okay.
I will touch on that as part of my submission.
Which is for 10 minutes.
Thank you. May God give you long life.
Go on.
My brother, the Progressive People's Party, our official position was we were against the new register. We were not against it for the many reasons that others are espousing. We were against it because we were saying that this is the 5th exercise in the 4th Republic. And that this exercise that is being undertaken, will it bring a certain permanence or the credibility that we are all seeking for as a nation with this process? We asked this question, then we gave an alternative resolution. What was the alternative resolution? That the funding that we are going to use to undertake this exercise, let's cede some of that funding to the National Identification Authority to complete the exercise. Now, you see that 60% of the people who are registered use the NIA card to do the registration, which presupposes that if we had put in the effort and supported Professor Tefa in his quest to register everybody, we would have been in a better situation. Because what that would have given us is that the NIA would then become what you call a dominant database. And you know, in science, you can get the recessive out of the dominant, but you can't get the dominant out of the recessive. So the dominant, we could have gotten the database for the Electoral Commission to use. We can get database on criminals in the system for the security system to use. We can get a database for passport to use. So you can see that if we had elected for a more permanent solution, which is the National Identification Authority, which constituted 60% of the total people registered, it means that if we had spent a little bit more time on the NIA and the process, we could have gotten it done. Then also, we want to talk about the political interference in the work of the Electoral Commission. The Progressive People's Party, we believe that what happened to us in 2016 was not Commissioner Osei Alone's decision. It was a political party decision.
Really?
A political government decision. Yes, because the party at the time said nothing about it. And ironically, the party in position now also said nothing about it. They both agreed that we should be out of the system. And so we are looking for an Electoral Commission or a process that the Electoral Commission can become more and more independent. More and more independent in taking out their duties. Look, I have no year at Commissioner Mensah that Commissioner Mensah and the team can go through these rudimentary processes. No. I have never questioned that. Their expertise. We have always questioned why certain things must be done when there are alternative solutions for us as a nation to have a permanent solution. So, Commissioner Mensah, for example, what I am going to say to Commissioner Mensah is that Commissioner Mensah must be resolute and must be strong in the sense that they do what is just for our nation, not what is perceived right by a political party. Because it seems ironical that every time a party is in power, that party becomes the spokesperson for the Electoral Commission. Isn't it ironical that when the then government was in power and the EC was there, they were the spokesperson for EC? And now this EC that is here, it is this government that becomes the spokesperson for the EC? Do we not see a certain correlation that the independence of the EC is under threat? So for us as the Progressive People Party, we believe that the strengthening of the National Identification Authority to do its work, and we feel vindicated by these numbers, because if we have 60% of the people who are registered for the Electoral Commission, for the EC registration database coming using the NIA as the source authority to do that. So it means that if you had completed the work of the NIA, they could have just printed for you within 5 days, as Professor Tefa said. I think Professor Tefa has been vindicated in this process. I also believe that the PPP's position has also been vindicated. So but the problem that we have is that you have to do another electoral database in the very near future until we strengthen the NIA and make the provision for the NIA to be the one to supply the Electoral Commission with the money. We will continue to spend in duplication of machinery. Look, the machinery the EC used, is it not the same machinery that the NIA used? We did double procurement for virtually the same work. It does not make sense. Look, I have friends at the Electoral Commission, highly competent people, highly intelligent people, people who know how to get the work done. When we talk about doing the work there has been no question about that. It has been, why this process? Why this time? Why is there a solution and we are not looking at it? Those are the fundamental things. So I believe that Commissioner Mensah must be strong, and we must support Commissioner Mensah, because look, sometimes when I talk to some of my brothers in the EC, they are not happy. These are political things that has been shoved down their necks. And so the independence of the Electoral Commission, people speak about it theoretically. But when you see that every time a party is in power, they become the spokesperson for the Electoral Commission, then you begin to wonder, what is the correlative relationship between the EC and the party in power? So when people are saying that governments are the ones who do these things, I don't think they are far from it.
Okay.
Because some of the evidence points to that. Having done that, if you look at the figures in the central region.
Yes. Please touch on that for me quickly.
You look at the figures in the western region and the western north region, and you put it together, and you look at the number in these two places, it is no wonder that they continue to become the kingmakers, the regions that make the difference. And so the western and central. And so what I believe the people of the west and central are going to ask of all these governments, that what have you done for me lately? What is your substantive work that you have done in order for us to be able to support you? And when you listen to the arguments, these arguments are not arguments that touch the heart. They are not arguments that the other parties are making that is appeasing to the people. And we are saying that by the end of August, we will have a presidential candidate. By first week in September, the manifesto will be launched. By second week in September, full-blown politics will come out. And then you will hear what the PPP, what our agenda is for this election, and what we will do for this election. So, and then you look at some of the statistics that have been brought out, that first-time voters, they peg it at 18. That is not the case, because some people were a day before 18 for the last election. So 18 plus 4 is 22. So you should be looking at people from 18 to the age of 22 that constitute first-time voters. And then there are people, of course, that have never voted before. But they should have used the statistics of the 18 to 22 to represent a chunk of people who are first-time voters. So this representation that they have given us as those who have been registered as first-time voters at the age of 18 is deceptive. It is deceptive. And if you focus on that, you will miss the boat. Okay. You miss the boat. You notice that they gave statistics of 18 years constituting
Yeah, the AIDS, on the AIDS category. Yeah.
4.55. Yes. There you say 19 years, constituting 3.6%. But if you put 4.5 plus 3.6%, you are moving close to 18. Then if you take the 20, the 21, the 22, you will see that the youth constitute, or the first-time voters, constitute an overwhelming, a strong percentage that we are looking at around 15 to 20% of this election. And that is where the issue will be. What are you telling them? What is the story? Because what are they getting? When people cry about what they have been done and they are doing, it is not, when I say it's not fundamental, it's not fundamental because you are talking about statistics in health, you are talking about statistics in education, you are talking about statistics. Those things can be run by technocrats. The technocrats at the ministries do not need a presidential or political push to add 2% more of electricity of Ghanaians or 5% more of power to people.
Okay, don't worry. Your 10 minutes is up.
We are talking about things that transform the mindset, the spirit, the direction of the nation.
Okay.
We are not talking about Akam Etim. No, the display that my brothers are displaying at the studio is the reason why we are.
Your brothers are very good friends, so don't worry. Don't worry about them.
I love them.
Your time is up. I know you love them. Suhini says he will meet you later. Your time is up. Thank you very much. So, Suhini, your party organized a press conference to respond to these numbers. First of all, this independent audit you are asking for, who should conduct that independent audit?
Well,
the EC legally is the only one that can do this.
Well, I don't think so. I think that you recall during the Supreme Court case, at a point, the court found it necessary to invite KPMG to do the auditing of the numbers. I think if we all find it important, and I think we should find it important because it is critical to the survival of this country and the democracy that we are experimenting, that we get an independent auditor to audit this. Because, you see, it's not just because we cannot trust the Electoral Commission to audit itself. Naturally, people tend to have suspicion when one has to audit itself. But it's also because of, a number of things they have told us that have not come to pass. For example, it was interesting listening to Franklin talk about the planned audit that was to take place at the Electoral Commission to find out the investments that we have made over the years in our electoral equipments and others. And my mind, as I listened to him, went to the fire that happened at the Electoral Commission. We are told is a storeroom, that got burned, and where they kept old, materials. It may just be coincidence, but I mean, if you know the kind of things that happen in this country, you tend to wonder if that was truly an accident. But investigations, I'm sure, will establish what really caused the fire. Now, I talk about the difficulty in trusting the Electoral Commission. Look, this was an Electoral Commission that told us that they were going to improve their system, make it robust, and in some cases suggested that they will introduce a facial recognition system. Those were some of the arguments they used to canvass support for us to compile a new voter register. That was to cost us over $120 million US. Now, we have all gone through the process. At the time, those of us who were opposed to it gave a number of reasons why we're opposed to it. And I think that
quite clear.
And I think that what we have experienced clearly tells us that it is time we all call on the Electoral Commission to tone down, pipe down, eat humble pie, and accept that this was a needless exercise.
Why? The data, you don't find it useful? All this data?
This data is not too different from what we already had. And so if we analyze the data we had before, we wouldn't have had to throw over $120 million that is needed, especially at the time of COVID, for other important things. And I'll explain to you why. Look, we talked about the tension this was going to generate. In fact, as a result of the compilation of this register, some people have died. They have killed people at registration centers. They have maimed and injured people. We talked about how that was needless. There was no need for us to do that because the existing register was good enough. We talked about the danger of people massing up, which will increase the risk of infections of COVID. You saw the mass ups. It may be too soon for us to tell if the infection rates has gone up as a result of those massing up. But you saw that there was really the chance of that happening. Again, we spoke about the system, and we thought that, and they argued that they were going to give us a better system. Now you are hearing the Electoral Commission tell us that they have duplicates in their system, and you are very good with IT. I hear you guys talk about it all the time, and I've been consuming some of the analysis that you have done. Look, we all know that a very credible biometric system has a system of purging itself of duplicates. It has a system of purging itself of duplicates. So how come that we spent that much for a system that was supposed to be better, only for us to be told that we now have to do what may look like a manual deletion of duplicates? What went wrong with the so-called advanced system that the EC was going to use? We also are suspicious, based on our information, that the EC's own system may have contributed to duplicates, and so if we do not audit properly, you are going to have people being deleted from the register through no fault of theirs. In fact, one person has told me that as a result of the system challenge, you could click to register one person, but when the system is slow and you click again, you double click, it enters twice and the numbers change. So for one person, through no fault of his, sitting before you, your clicks can enter two different numbers on the system. So how do you go and delete the name of such a person from the register because you see two names belonging to the same person with different numbers? So that is why we are saying there's a need for us to do an independent audit and know what went wrong. And Godfred, I am saying we have achieved nothing dramatic because Nana Akufo-Addo, our president, in opposition, told us that with a population of 30 million people, it was unreasonable for us to have a voter population of 15 million. We are still around 13 million. 30 million.
22 million people.
No, it was 30 million. 30 million. He said 30 million. I'm quoting him.
Started the process.
Please, okay, I'm quoting him. Okay. He said it was unreasonable for us to have a population of 30 million with a voter population of 15 million.
We've had a population of 30 million for a decade now.
Now it's about 31 million. That's what the estimates now. So if you have 31 million and you have done a register that is supposed to be credible, that you supported and championed, to give us 16 million, does it mean your analysis was wrong? I think so. You had Dr. Bawumia, who held a press conference and told us the figures, especially from the voter region, Ketu, North and others, couldn't be supported, and that there were foreigners on that voter roll. And that and because of these arguments, the campaign for a new register was launched. Today, Ketu North and South have recorded higher numbers than before with this so-called improved system. Doesn't mean you got it wrong. Let's be humble and admit that they did. Now,
wrap up.
We also know when you hear them talk about, if we had done a new limited registration exercise, the numbers would have been higher. Of course, it would have been higher. Of course. But what really have we achieved? I have said, if you look at the mortality rate in this country, that is put at 7.7 to 1,000 lives. It is obvious that from 2012 to now, there were dead people who were on the register of 2019. And that would have been a substantial number of people. But the good news is that those dead people could not have voted because we are using a biometric system. So did we have to spend over $120 million to remove, if you like, dead people from our register whose existence on our register had no impact whatsoever on our voting process? I mean, is that a worthy way of spending hard-earned currency? Because the Electoral Commission has admitted that even with this register, there are minors and foreigners on it. And that is interesting. Okay. There are minors and foreigners, and then they argue that they will remove minors. Again, the absurdity with which we have put ourselves, I mean, the absurdity with which we will deal with these minors, I still cannot fathom.
Okay, well, let's wait for them to deal with the
situation. You know why? You through the process, take out the importance of a voter, I mean, a birth certificate. So I have my child. I bring my child to the registration center. We all know the Constitution says the child must be 18 and above, and with sound mind. So I come to the registration center and I tell you my child is 18 and is of sound mind. How are you going to challenge me? Are you going to say I should bring my birth cert? That is inconsequential to the courts have determined to be inconsequential to the registration process. How are we going to remove the minors?
All right, good question. We'll let the EC answer that. Eric, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yes, because I took time away from you for the
and
previous incident.
He didn't allow me. There was protest from Nana and Co as well. But that's fine. I mean, again, I think that the conversations surrounding statistics are clear. I'm also clear in my mind that the EC has done a fantastic job. Now, if you look at the statistics in terms of what they said they would do and how they've been able to do that, they've done well. Of course, we had some...
Are you not worried by the projections?
I think that we had some fallouts. But you see, the position of Franklin, to an extent, and also by default the NDC here has been consistent. But the good thing is that we, as a political party, have also been extremely consistent since 2012 with regards to this particular register. And one would ask, I mean, why would a political party that actually benefited from the register actually by coming to power would even still insist that if the EC deems it so to actually have a new register, we should have that. And that is where the mark of consistency comes into play.
Okay.
Right, and we need to be very careful. We actually went on demonstrations, let my vote count, and all of those, insisting that there were clear anomalies with that particular register. And our position was based on the fact that the mandate of the Electoral Commission, and that is clear. I mean, the NDC and some of its acolytes actually took the matter all the way to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court determined that the EC had the right to go ahead and do what it does. And you see, I always posit this, so there's conversations and issues based on a constitution that we've all agreed that we want to be governed by, where the framers of this constitution, for one reason or the other, probably thought that there will be a day that we are going to have stalemates. And that, so in the same vein, whilst people are talking about some phantom, if you like, government intervention and government leaning on the EC and everything, also has to stick to the principle. And the principle is very simple. The EC, as mandated by the Constitution, is an independent body, and it can still go out there and compile a new register. Our position as a political party, and you can decide to ascribe all sort of, reasons to the fact why the MPP is supporting the EC. But the consistency of the matter is clear. Now, as to if the money is well spent and all of those things, I think that really, again, it behoves on all of us to look at systems. And I'm open-minded when it comes to these conversations. That in this day and age, really, maybe, as we go forward, like Nano Fori said about using the NIA's database and all that, and even other databases that can be configured in such a way that we do not have the need to go and compile a new register. But you see, the challenge with this conversation is that sometimes we are not very candid with ourselves. As even the two major political parties, we are not very candid with ourselves, because the EC had structures in place even to allow for continuous registration, right? And the political parties insisted. I mean, they are calling for an audit, but they were actually not even in agreement with the compilation of a new register anyway. That once you turn 18, you can go through your district office and register. The political parties objected with the view that, well, they can't have agents sitting at the EC office on a daily basis, which means that we have fundamental challenges when it comes to issues to be trust. And these are things that we can deal with. And then also the institutions, if we want to mandate the NIA to provide the cards and do so and create institutions where when you start, I mean, in other jurisdictions, once you turn 16, your national insurance card comes into play. You turn 18, you're automatically placed on the roll, and then you can go out there and vote. We can create systems like that. I mean, this is 2020. I mean, we can't be stuck in the dark forever. But on the basis of where we have come from. And you see, the conversation surrounding an election that, as far as I'm concerned, the stakes are extremely high. And the EC decides that they had issues with some of the equipment being obsolete and their software systems and everything, right? Again, people like Franklin and Co. have every right to have divergent views on the matter. But you see, I keep asking that in the case that there's these divergences in opinions and directions and everything, what happens, right? So maybe this is a call for all of us to get to a point where we can trust ourselves. We can create a system where it's open, transparent, so that we do not have to come back to this. But on the basis of government being in cahoots with the EC and all of this, you see, once we start that, you're opening the can of worms.
Let's not open the can of worms.
And
your 5 minutes is up,
no, it's not 5 minutes.
You can see, look at your screen. Thank you very much for staying with us on this episode of The Big Issue. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Thank you, Suhini. Suhini has some new research out. I want everybody to read it. Challenges of the Public Accounts Committee of Ghana's Parliament in ensuring an efficient public framework management. Co-authored with Hambali Dauda, Joseph Enchibusiako, and Suhini. It's very interesting reading, so I suggest you out there go and get it and read. It's a pleasure. Thank you, Franklin Kujo. Thank you, Nanofore Wusu, President of the PPP. See you next week.
Me the anti-mess, me will betray a bin wa. Me ton bidi, any ensue. Me kumbe wija me nkwala enu. And me brati section 84 ni lankwanta 9 year program me no bebo mama ne se wo mo boa omo eni bi. EU na ma won sika se wo mo nye. Me de me ho ko shame se ebe ma yen sa no dwuma yen so ye de bebo ye bra. Se me ye potri farm. Me kwaye no. Na niema bebre na ne ye. Wo mo kire potri. Omo chere glass cutter, omo chere mushroom, any feeding, na me choose poultry, na me de me ho shame. Si me ko ho training kakra. Ko e no omo chere me se ne yen wom. Omo do omo ba, e se me go so light esi wom ho. No echi no sorry na pa be feed wom. Wo be ma won ensuo, ene eduru. Ti eno na me hyen ya me gusu a me de yen adwuma no. Ewie training no lankwantana na yi ofo boa sika ama se say wo mo boa yemwa no ma yemwa no 100 start adwuma no wo ma ye enkokọ no bedidim eni ombe no mu e bibia ehiama enkokọ no wo mo ye ma ye ne edan wo mo si dan so ma ye 100 na mo de start ye no they say me go 200 a na me gusu a me ye
To tell you the truth, this week I've been traumatized. Yeah, I've been traumatized. I was watching Professor Akela Akpasoye's interview with Samens on Footprints. I was listening actually on radio, and then he said that at age 23, he was a lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam.